Happy Mother's Day, everyone. Today is our day of forgiveness, though. My title this morning is "The One That Rocks the Cradle Rules the World." Famous line from my mother, which I found out is actually a quotation from a poem from 1800. But our spiritual principle says that freedom is your birthright, and forgiveness is the pathway to get there. So happy Mother's Day to all, whether or not you had children or whether or not you served in the maternal role for someone. Because many times that's just how it happens, right? You just turn up in the role. Now, I grew up in Detroit, and Mother's Day in Detroit is much more important than Easter, by the way. It is a big deal. It is a big deal. For Mother's Day at home, everyone wears flowers. Fathers, mothers, children, everyone wears flowers. And it all is an indication of about your mother. So if your mother has passed through the veil and has gone to the other side and left this expression to the next, you wear a white flower. If your mother is still with us, you wear a red flower. If you are a mother, you have a big old corsage. But if your mother is still around, it's red, and if not, it's white, okay? And some people got creative. If they had steps, they had red and white going on. This happened, seriously, you could go there today. They sell flowers on every corner and in front of every church. It is that big of a deal. Now, I know people didn't believe me about this morning at 9 a.m., and somebody walked up to me after service and said, "Honey, I'm from Cleveland. I know exactly what you're talking about." I said, see, I know. But Mother's Day is one of those important days. It's a really important day because we do get to recognize and acknowledge and appreciate people who have made such an amazing impact upon our lives. But mothers are complicated, aren't they? In one thought, you love them, and at the same time, you want to commit matricide. Remember, you can't do it, though, because you will go to jail. Now, you will have sympathy with the jury, because if they've had a mother, they probably understand why you did it, okay? It's just a difficult role to have. You just cannot be perfect, even though we expect you to be, and most mothers would like to be. It's the paradox of this love and hate relationship that we have. And you can all sit here and look at me like, of course, we only love our mothers, but I'm here, I will get in your business. I guarantee you, you got a story just like the rest of us. But Bernice is my adopted mother, and who I lived with my entire life. And it was unequivocal with her that motherhood followed right after the divine. There was no question. There was the divine, and there was motherhood. And sometimes she competed with the divine. There was no question. She was really clear about it. I told this story this morning. I said I wasn't going to tell this, but I am. Everybody remember Dennis Rodman? Okay, you remember Dennis Rodman? You remember when Dennis Rodman went through his evolution of unfolding in front of us? My mother decided that he needed a mother, okay? So she wrote him and adopted him as her child. And he wrote her back. Oh, it didn't help him, I don't know, but it could have been worse, I guess. When my mother was done with a conversation, though, it would always say, "But I am your mother." And that meant the conversation was over, okay? It might as well be amen or and so it is. It was no question. You know how you know when to sit down because we say and so it is? And you go, okay, now it's time to sit down. Okay? That's how definitive the situation was. And she would do it and she would pull it on me at any given time. But, you know, mothers know how to push our buttons. Does your mother know how to push your button? Do you push your kids' buttons? Yeah, I'm sure you do. They can make us feel invincible. And within the same thought, you feel like you should be flushed. All in the same thought. But mothers have this very special place, not only in our society, but in our hearts. We just love them anyhow. Sometimes their loves know no bounds, and they care, and we know that they care, and they're full of compassion. And then there's sometimes they just show up needing love. And sometimes we show up to them needing love. And if they need love and we need love, it is a nuclear reaction. That is not going to be a good meeting. But once I became an adult, my mother, we talked frequently, and every Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we had a conversation. Wherever I was in the world, she didn't care because she was my mother. So we would have this conversation. But the thing is I only recognize and share all the wonderful things about her, and you would think that I only think the perfect things about her, but that's not true. We would tie up like you wouldn't believe. In fact, we would argue almost every Sunday on one topic until I figured out she ain't listening to me at all. The Spirit don't even need to tell me this. She's just done. So here was the argument. The argument was about power of attorney at the end of her life. It wasn't that I wanted to have the power of attorney. It wasn't a control issue here. I just wanted to know her wishes because she was remarried. Now, in my mother's head, she said, but you're my next of kin. And I said, but not legally. Your husband is your next of kin. No, he's not. You are my next of kin. I said, well, then you need to institute a power of attorney. No, I'm not doing that because I don't know that I can trust you not to give up too fast. Yeah, only your mama can make you feel like you need to be flushed. Okay? Now, mind you, I have worked in a hospital my entire life, and I have watched families fall out over this issue. I watched them fight. And I will tell you, it's such a big deal that sometimes certain ethnic groups that may be in our hospital in Sacramento, it's not even my unit. And they'll call me, can you go up there? Can you go up there? Can you just bring them a face, that they can identify with? Because they never agree. There's always one son or daughter who knows more than anybody else. And in healthcare, you just have to deal with it, right? But it's just a part of it, and I didn't want to go through this experience. But I have figured out the whole thing is the reason she didn't want to talk about it is what she was superstitious. That the idea of talking about it would make it happen. And a lot of us are superstitious. We are not spiritual. There is a difference. It depends on where it comes from. If it's spiritual, it comes from love. If it's superstition, it comes from fear. And she would never have acknowledged it, and she trying to get out of heaven right now to beat me up and show up here. But I waited till she was good and gone before I told this story. It's all about fear. That's what it is. It's all about fear. So from birth, our parents form us. They're responsible for shaping our lives. And they're responsible for shaping our lives sometimes in good and bad ways. Because we learn from them. Sometimes we learn from them what to do, and sometimes we learn from them what not to do. And there's a long list of those. Not that my mother ever would have acknowledged anything other than that she was perfect. Her line was, I did such a good job. I said, didn't I go to school? I did such a good job. But if you go off and do something wrong, Ricky, if you go off and do something wrong, you're on your own. That's on you. But one of my mother's famous lines was, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And she said it just like that. The one that rocks the cradle rules the world. I never thought she had it in her. But there were times my mother could get the head and the finger out, and I'd say, oh, yeah, it's in there. Yeah, it's in there. But the power of society is directed often, indirectly, by the women and the mothers that are in our lives. My mother understood the power that she had and the influence that she had and the influence that every mother has. They are the hand that rules a lot of our lives. And there's a lot of things in our life, good and bad, that's all in relationship in reference to that experience. But being a mother is a challenging job, isn't it? Because some of us were children at one point in time. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I was a much better child than I am an adult. I was pretty good as a child. As an adult, hopefully there's no video. It is a position of immense power, and as women can shape and mold us into what we are. But let's not forget that they too are what? They are human. And although they are whole, perfect, and complete, just the way we are whole, perfect, and complete, their behavior is not always whole, perfect, and complete. And guess what? Nor is ours. Nor is our. Don't ever be so fooled because you're whole, perfect, and complete that anything you do is whole, perfect, and complete, and it comes from whole, perfect, and complete. Because that's not true. I guarantee you it's not true. Because sometimes it will come from fear. It will not come from love. But the only way to heal these difficult relationships that we have with our mothers is to deal with it with forgiveness. It's the only way to fix it. And we must practice forgiveness if we choose to have emotional and spiritual freedom in our lives. The ability to forgive speaks to our unfolding of consciousness, how close we are for the divine, how we're able to operate in faith, knowing that we just know that this is going to work its way out, even though I am never going to win this argument because she is my mother. It is an act of faith. And remember, forgiveness is not for the one who's offended you. It is for the offended. The healing comes when we forgive when we have been offended. This is how we overcome. Now, I will get more email about forgiveness than I do about any other topic that I talk about. Because there are some people who want to stay in their position. And they would like to stay in their position of unforgiveness because they feel in some kind of way that this is punishing their mother. But it's not. It's only punishing you. For the most of us, learning to treat ourselves better is a learning process. Why? Because we have spent years thinking bad about ourselves, having difficult experiences, people telling us all kinds of things. And we have to have courage and forgiveness and determination to change how we think about ourselves and to recognize that we can too have a better life. And we can have a better life without your mother ever admitting to you that you were right. In fact, I decided at 35, which was only last year, that I just called her and said, look, you are right about everything because I need to break the curse, because there are things, I would hold against her, and I would realize there were things that were a problem in my life because I held these things against her, and they were all over nothing. Most of the time it was who has the power to make the decision. But forgiveness is a spiritual practice. It really is. And it's one of the spiritual practices that we forget, that we lose and forget. Now, what is a spiritual practice? It is something that develops and opens up our consciousness toward the divine that is within us. It is the thing that gives us the ability to tap into being whole, perfect, and complete. But when it comes to relationships with our mothers, we often are just emotionally immature. Do you ever just become a child when you see her? Or when you think of her, you become 4 all over again. And the signs that we are reacting out of emotional insecurity is having, and I am going to get in your business right now, controlling behavior, verbal abuse, manipulating others, withdrawing, pouting, unforgiveness, hanging on to resentments, passive-aggressive behavior, not taking responsibility for our actions, creating drama and chaos, needing to be the center of attention, contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And you should find yourself there, and your mother is there too. Mine is. She never would acknowledge it, but I'm sure it's true. Sometimes she could do this whole thing about, well, I know I'm a bother. But I'll leave that there. Sometimes mothers come to us, though, and their behavior is immature. And we have to have a little bit of grace and forgiveness in the whole situation. Sometimes we have unresolved grievances and unforgiveness. And when we have unforgiveness, it traps us. We try to create these unenforceable rules. This is how your mother must act to be in relationship with you. But it is something that you don't have control over. How can you have your unenforceable rule is a rule that you establish and you have no power over making it happen. You can't have those. The only thing you can do is make decisions about how you are going to think about it, not the enforceable rule on your mother. Now, maybe that's not a relationship you can maintain, but you can't enforce a rule on someone else that you don't have the power to deliver. You can't do it. It will not work. You will chase that the entire part of your life. It is something you cannot reach. And somehow or another, we believe that it's a noble thing to be that way. That I think so much of myself that this is how she has to handle me. Well, guess what? We're in the prison because we've established something that we probably have no evidence that they're able to do. But we can heal our wounds that fester no matter how long the hurt has been there if we choose to forgive. Because the real reason to practice forgiveness has nothing to do with the person that has offended us. It has to do with us. It is a very self-centered and emotional survival to the individual. It's how we survive. We are not letting them off the hook. In fact, we are getting off of the hook that we have put ourselves on. We have placed ourselves on a hook, creating an expectation for them that is not reasonable at all. It's difficult for us to learn how to live and treat ourselves better than before, but it's possible. Forgiveness is difficult, but you have to give up a few issues to forgive. First, you must give up the idea that you are superior. I perfected this. Whenever she would go off, I was just above it. You know, I had all kind of anguish on the inside, but I was above it. You know, and you can't. The other thing you cannot be is you cannot be a victim. You cannot think it's, oh, woe, it's me, and it's all happening to me, and if it doesn't, whatever's going on, it's all about me, the whole, everything, everybody wakes up in the morning, and it's about me. God, I'd love that role. But that just doesn't happen. The other thing that you can't do is want revenge. You have to give up the idea of revenge. Now, the amazing thing is you probably have treated your pain, feeling superior, being a victim, and waiting to have revenge. And at a point in time when you want to go from pain to freedom, you must decide that you are going to let it go. It's all about what we choose to do within ourselves. The only natural way to overcome these situations is to renounce the grievance. You are holding on to something that you cannot fix on your own. You cannot wait till you feel that you have forgiven. It doesn't work that way. You must forgive first, and eventually you'll feel it. Because they will say the same thing that they said in the past, and it won't bother you anymore. One day, right in the middle of my statement, it was after the Spirit said, would you just shut up? She is just not going to listen to you. And I was done. We didn't argue about it anymore. And yes, I did. I lived through all the misery of her not writing down her wishes. But it was just something she was determined that I was going to have to do. So I did. But you can overcome. First, you must be clear about these unenforceable rules that we place on someone, that this is how they must think about us and how they must treat us to be in relationship with us. That doesn't mean that I want you to be abused at all. That's not what I'm saying. You may not be able to be in the relationship, But you cannot impose a rule and an expectation upon them for which you have no power to create. Mystical life does not mean you have power over other people. Yes, I signed up because it meant I had power over other people, and then I eventually figured out, well, I only have power over myself. Only one I can change is me. Because if you have these unenforceable rules, you have made your happiness and your relationship with them conditional, and you have no control over it. And an unenforceable rule is an expectation that we have. And how do we know that we have them? We start the sentence with, she must or she better. That's how we start. And it lets us know that there is bitterness and anger, and there is something there, and there is this unenforceable rule that we need healing from. So to know whether or not, you just have to listen to what goes on in your own mind. Forgiveness, though, is a choice. And it is our individual choice to forgive. We decide, and we can practice this way of life if we choose to, just like we do everything else based on faith. We miss something by not having a little penitentiary prayer at times, because there is a line that I think is important, and that is, we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Because we realize that those people that have offended us, if we forgive them, we also will receive the forgiveness of others. Be sure we're clear about our feelings, though, and how we feel about it. You know, you can only punch that pillow so often. You can only call her so many names behind her back. But the thing is are you happy with that relationship? You must know the facts about the story rather than the story that you tell yourself. Because the story that you tell yourself is probably a whole lot bigger than what really happened. And you always know, what story do you tell other people? It's always an indication of how big the story has become. You may need some spiritual support from somebody who will tell you that you are wrong about how you are handling it, and not just support you no matter what you say or do. Sometimes you just have to have a mature spiritual friend that say, honey, is that working for you? Really? How many years has it been? Is it working for you? But you need somebody that will tell you that. And sometimes your close friends won't, because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear you go off. I'm sure mine didn't. So this Mother's Day, I am inviting you to embrace an entirely new practice for Mother's Day. And that is that you decide to be free by practicing forgiveness. And so it is. I wish somebody had told me it was all about me. Let us pray, giving thanks and praise for the power of the spiritual life, the power that is given unto us to make decisions and choices about how we want our life to unfold. So for everyone who chooses to forgive today, I speak a word of gratitude for their power and their witness to decide that they want a better life than they had yesterday. And so it is. So it is. Amen. Amen.